Alright, it is Straw Hat Goofy here, and let's talk about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So Venom, Let There Be Carnage is a sequel to the movie Venom that came out a couple years ago to a lot of widespread acclaim. Well, commercially anyway. Critically, toss up on who you're asking. A lot of people got tons of enjoyment out of it. I know China loved the movie. It made tons of box office money over in China. It's not really the Venom origin story I would have picked. Like, personally, I think that you kind of need Spider-Man to tell that Venom origin story because I think it's an essential part of the character. But, for movie purposes and for the fact that, Tom Holland's in the MCU and they couldn't really use Tom Holland in the Sony movies just yet, then yeah, they did what they did with what they could. I found the original very enjoyable. I didn't think it was the best movie of all time, but if you just kind of turn your brain off and see it as almost a lesser version of the movie Upgrade, then I think it's a pretty good watch. By the way, watch Upgrade. It's a great movie. But Venom, Let There Be Carnage pretty much follows Venom and Carnage as they've kind of gotten used to each other, or in this sense, they've gotten too used to each other. They're bickering a lot. Obviously, they're sharing one body, kind of one mind, and they're arguing within themselves a lot. So you kind of see like this dynamic that's like an old married couple between the two. All the while, we get reintroduced to Cletus Cassidy, who's played by Woody Harrelson. And for some reason, Cletus has this type of connection with Eddie Brock, wanting him to do stories on him and things of that sort, as we saw in the post-credit scene of the first movie. Obviously, things go sideways, and Cletus ends up becoming Carnage. But there's also like a new wrinkle in this movie that I feel like the trailers really haven't touched on, and that's the character of Shriek. Shriek and Cletus have their own dynamic because they're both pretty much crazy people locked up, and let's just say there's romantic things going on there that I don't remember happening in the comics. I don't think it has happened in the comics, but it's happening in this movie, so that's just kind of like an extra layer that you kind of need to know when going into this movie. To be honest, the movie look, the movie, I keep saying this, it is comparable to me to Fantastic Four from 2015, Fant Four Stick, if you will. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily that bad of a movie. I don't think anything can really stoop to the lows of Fant Four Stick. Venom, Let There Be Carnage definitely doesn't really do that. The thing about the Fantastic Four movie in 2015 is that the pacing in that movie was terrible, but the thing that really stuck with me is that it always felt like it was in the third act. And before you knew it, there was just a big battle at the end, and that was it. There's pretty much Carnage here. Obviously, there's things to fill up that time. The movie's, very quick. It's only about 90 minutes. The movie moves at a very brisk pace. The only difference between that and Fant Four Stick is that Venom, Let There Be Carnage actually has moments that you genuinely like during that very fast pacing time. So obviously, it doubles down on the relationship between Venom and Eddie Brock because they're obviously sharing one mind, one body. It was a big highlight in the first film, just kind of like their banter, the way those two bounced off each other, interacted with each other. And I think that's still Tom Hardy that's doing the voiceover for Venom. So it's pretty much Tom Hardy talking to himself, looking like a crazy person out in public. But that was a big chunk of the movie. It's just kind of like Venom and Eddie kind of either getting to know each other or disagreeing with each other or pretty much deciding on what they should do as, Venom. And a lot of the time I was wondering when some of the action was going to start. I wasn't looking at my watch or anything because, again, the banter between Venom and Eddie Brock is super enjoyable. I was just wondering when exactly are we going to get to the Venom versus Carnage thing? And you get a lot of that. Once Carnage shows up, things really start moving. But at the end of the day, when we get to the third act, I remember thinking to myself, where was the second act? It just always felt like we were in the beginning stages of the movie. So that's just kind of how I felt by the time we got to the second act. I was enjoying myself throughout the entirety of the movie, but then when we got to the end, it was just kind of like, okay, we are here. Don't know how we got here, but we're here regardless, so let's just enjoy it. Obviously, Tom Hardy puts in a pretty capable performance as Eddie Brock. He is really good at having this very manic energy. Seeing him just kind of tweaking. He's tweaking most of the movie. He's kind of talking to himself because obviously he has this symbiote in his head talking back to him. But even when he's not talking to Venom, it's always like he's on edge. There's one scene in a fancy restaurant, and putting that character of Eddie Brock, that version of Eddie Brock, in a restaurant, it's just so jarring. Because it's really fancy and he's just, hey, how's it going? So it's really a joy to kind of see because obviously, we know why he's acting that way. So, and Tom Hardy has a lot of fun with it. So I really enjoyed that. And again, it would look crazy if Venom wasn't in his ear talking. So they kind of paid that off in a really cool way. Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson, for me didn't work that much. He's just kind of plays crazy in a kind of hammy way. As we know in the comics, Cletus Cassidy is not the most stable person. I mean, he murdered people just because he thought it was fun. But he in the comics is a serial killer. That's what he is. Whereas like in this movie, like Cletus Cassidy is still kind of like a very dark, like serial killer guy. But it's just seeing Woody Harrelson just smile manically, just for some reason it doesn't come across on screen as well as like it did in the comics. You could tell he was trying to be faithful to the comics in that way. It was just, for me, like the things that he did, the things that he said just seemed very kind of like, ooh, I'm crazy. That's the only line that was missing from him to let us know that he was crazy. But in case you didn't know, Cletus Cassidy is crazy. It's very ham-fisted. They really go for your throat on that one. Naomi Harris plays the character of Shriek. I honestly don't know that much about Shriek, the character. I'm pretty sure that is also a symbiote, if I'm not. There's a lot of, no, I'm thinking of Scream. Disregard that. But Shriek plays like Cletus Cassidy's kind of like love interest, partner in crime in the movie. And obviously like she's just kind of there. Like, to be honest, when it comes to all the characters in this movie, if it's not Carnage, if it's not Venom, if it's not Eddie, and it's not Cletus, you don't really care. Like, on it, like, look, I love Michelle Williams, and you know she's cool in this movie. It's just she's so talented, and they just underutilize her. I felt this way in the first movie as well. If she wasn't She-Venom in the first movie, then honestly, I feel like you could have did that movie without her. And yeah, this movie does find ways to kind of like incorporate her into the movie and make her like useful, but in all honesty, once you get to the second act, it's kind of business as usual with the character of her stature, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you watch the movie. There's this one character though who reminds me of the guy on TikTok who's like the newscaster and he does all the viral TikTok dances. He's played by Reed Scott, and he's kind of like a nice welcome addition of comedic relief in a movie filled with comedic relief. But he was actually pretty funny. He's kind of like the average Joe guy who's like kind of like looking at all this and going, yeah, I don't think we should be doing this. So I really kind of like liked his character. Yeah, so I was wrong. The only character besides Cletus, Venom, Carnage, and Eddie, that guy. I don't even know his name. I just know that guy. He was pretty funny to me. But at the end of the day, guys, like Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Like if you're just going in there to see Carnage F stuff up, that's about it, and you pretty much get that. If that's what you want, you will get it, and that's honestly the movie. And obviously you get the Eddie and Venom action, like that comedic timing, that they're a great comedic duo. I can watch multiple movies with those two just talking to each other, and you get plenty of that in the movie. It's a huge chunk of the movie, so you're gonna get tons and tons of that. Now I know what you're thinking. You guys came to this YouTube review, you probably didn't even watch the whole video. You just wanted me to talk about the post-credit scene. Now there is a post-credit scene in this movie. It's a doozy. It's crazy. It's awesome. And honestly, I was in the theater and I had two of my friends, and when the thing happened, I jumped out of my seat and audibly screamed out, "What the F?" Like, because it's that huge. Now, I know some of you guys already had your theories on what it might be. Some of you guys have been right. Some of you guys have been really, really wrong. I'm not going to say anything because I promised Tom Hardy that I wouldn't. Yep, Tom Hardy told me not to spoil it, so I'm going to just do what he says. But it's a very, very great post-credit scene, so please, I ask you, if you watch it, do not spoil it. Like, don't be that guy. Just let other people experience for the first time as well. I was very fortunate enough to not get spoiled, but a lot of people weren't so lucky. It was unfortunately spoiled in a lot of different comment sections on a lot of different social media platforms. And I just want you guys to, please, if you see it, freak out about it, talk amongst the people who have seen it, and then keep it to yourself, and then we can talk about it later. But yes, that is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. If you guys are checking it out, let me know in the comments down below, what did you guys think of the movie once you have seen it? And also, like, for those of you guys who came from TikTok, or if you just found me on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. Really helps the algorithm. I really appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys later. Peace. I totally just stole that from Comics Explained.